Hollywood, California. 1929.
Isn't this just divine?
The Academy Awards were announcing their first ever Best Actor winner. Behind the scenes, the vote counters were stunned. The winner, by a landslide, wasn't a human.
Yes, let's dance.
It was a German shepherd named Rin Tin Tin. A dog had beaten every human actor in Hollywood. Charlie Chaplin, Douglas Fairbanks, the biggest names in the business. A dog. The Academy panicked. They couldn't give their first Oscar to a canine. It would make a mockery of the whole institution. So they changed the rules on the spot and gave it to a human instead. But here's what blows my mind about this story. 11 years earlier, that same dog was dying. Starving. Covered in rubble. Buried in the wreckage of a bombed-out German war kennel in France. His mother was barely alive. His siblings were fading fast. Nobody was coming to save them. The war didn't care about puppies. But then a young American soldier crawled through the ruins looking for anything salvageable. And he found something better than supplies. He found 5 dying puppies and their mother huddled together in the rubble, waiting for death. He could have walked away. Should have, probably. War zones aren't places for pets. But Corporal Lee Duncan looked into those eyes and made a choice that would change Hollywood forever. He scooped up 2 puppies and carried them out of hell. One of them was Rin Tin Tin. This is their story. Lee Duncan knew what it meant to be abandoned. Born in 1893 in Oakland, California, Lee was just a kid when his father walked out. His mother couldn't cope. She placed Lee and his sister in an orphanage and disappeared. For years, Lee waited for someone to come back. Nobody did. He grew up in that orphanage, learning the hard way that the world doesn't owe you anything. That if you want love, you have to earn it. That family isn't blood, it's choice. When World War I broke out, Lee enlisted. Not for glory. Not for country. He enlisted because he had nothing else. No home waiting for him. No family to miss him. No sweetheart to write letters. Just a lonely young man looking for somewhere to belong. The army sent him to France in 1918. He was 25 years old. He had no idea that somewhere in the ruins of a bombed German kennel, a puppy was waiting for him. A puppy who needed a family as badly as he did. The Germans used dogs for everything. Sentry duty. Message running. Locating wounded soldiers. Pulling supply carts through the mud. German shepherds were their weapon of choice, smart, loyal, tireless. The Allies knew this. So they bombed the kennels. In September 1918, American artillery hit a German war dog facility near the town of Fliery in the Lorraine region of France. The handlers fled. The dogs were left behind. Most didn't survive. When the shelling stopped, Corporal Duncan's unit was sent to scout the area. Look for intelligence. Documents. Anything useful. Duncan volunteered to search the kennel. Waste of time, his sergeant said. Nothing alive in there. Duncan went anyway. Something was pulling him toward those ruins. Call it fate. Call it luck. Call it whatever you want. He was about to find something that would change both their lives forever. And almost didn't make it out alive. If this story already has you hooked, smash that subscribe button right now. Every single week, we dig up true stories of war dogs who became legends. You don't want to miss what happens next. The kennel was a graveyard. Duncan picked his way through the rubble, stepping over debris and trying not to look at what remained of the dogs who hadn't made it. The smell was overwhelming. Death and smoke and something else, something alive. He heard it before he saw it. Whimpering. Faint. Desperate. Coming from somewhere beneath a collapsed wall. Duncan dropped to his knees and started digging with his bare hands. Splinters tore at his fingers. Dust filled his lungs. And then he saw them. A German shepherd mother, half buried, shielding her body over 5 tiny puppies. She was starving. Dehydrated. Barely conscious. But she was still protecting her babies. Duncan carefully lifted the debris away. The mother didn't growl. Didn't snap. She just looked at him with eyes that said, "Please. Save them." He couldn't take all of them. He was a soldier in a war zone, not a rescue operation. But he could take 2. He chose a male and a female. The smallest ones. The ones who looked like they wouldn't make it without help. He tucked them inside his coat, close to his chest, and felt their tiny hearts beating against his. In that moment, something shifted inside Lee Duncan. For the first time since childhood, someone needed him. Not the army. Not his country. These puppies. He named them after French good luck charms that children gave to soldiers. Rin Tin Tin and Nanette. He had no idea what he'd just started. The other soldiers thought Duncan had lost his mind. "You're keeping dogs? In a war zone? They're gonna die, Lee. Or get you killed. The army's not gonna let you bring them home." Duncan didn't care. He fed Rinty and Nanette from his own rations. Built them a bed from supply blankets. Trained them between artillery barrages. And something incredible started to happen. Rin Tin Tin was different. Even as a puppy, he learned commands faster than any dog Duncan had ever seen. Sit. Stay. Come. Down. He mastered them in days. But it was more than obedience. Rinty seemed to understand things. Read emotions. Anticipate what Duncan wanted before he even gave the command. When Duncan was sad, which was often, in the hell of the trenches, Rinty would press against him, quiet and warm. When danger approached, a shell, a patrol, Rinty would alert before anyone else. The other soldiers stopped laughing. "That dog's something special," one sergeant admitted. "Never seen anything like it." Duncan knew they were right. And he started to dream. Back home in America, the movie industry was exploding. Hollywood was making stars out of nothing. What if? What if a dog could be a movie star? It was crazy. Ridiculous. Dogs didn't make movies. But looking into Rinty's intelligent eyes, Duncan saw something that said, "Try me." The war ended in November 1918. Duncan faced his first real test, getting Rin Tin Tin back to America. The army said no. Regulations didn't allow pets on transport ships. Duncan had a choice to make. And for the first time in his life, he refused to let go. Getting Rinty home was a nightmare. The official policy was clear: no dogs on military transports. Period. End of discussion. Duncan didn't accept it. He begged. Pleaded. Argued with every officer who would listen. Wrote letters up the chain of command. Nothing worked. Then he tried something desperate. He smuggled Rinty onto the ship. It was insane. If caught, he faced serious consequences. Court-martial. Dishonorable discharge. Everything he'd served for, gone. But when he looked at Rinty, when he felt that small body pressed against his, that heartbeat matching his own, he couldn't leave him behind. So he hid the dog in a duffel bag. For 2 weeks across the Atlantic, Duncan lived in constant terror. He sneaked Rinty food. Took him for secret walks on the deck at night. Bribed other soldiers to keep quiet. Nanette didn't make it. She died on the journey, too weak to survive. Duncan buried her at sea with tears streaming down his face. But Rinty survived. When they finally reached American soil, Duncan breathed for the first time in weeks. They'd made it. Now came the real challenge. He was back in California with no money, no job, no prospects, and a German shepherd who ate more than he did. The smart move was to find Rinty a good home and move on. Duncan couldn't do it. They'd survived the war together. Survived the crossing together. They were family now. So Duncan got a job, anything he could find, and started training Rinty seriously. Every day before work. Every night after. Weekends spent teaching the dog tricks that would make vaudeville performers jealous. Jump through hoops. Climb ladders. Play dead. Crawl on command. Respond to hand signals from 50 feet away. The neighbors thought he was crazy. "What are you training that dog for?" "Movies," Duncan said. They laughed. Nobody was making movies with dogs. It was absurd. But Duncan had seen something in Rinty that nobody else could see yet. That intelligence. That charisma. That almost human quality. He knew that if he could just get Hollywood to look, they'd see it too. For 3 years, Duncan dragged Rinty to every studio, every producer, every director who would give them 5 minutes. 3 years of rejection. Interesting dog, but we don't make dog pictures. Come back when you have a real act. 3 years of being laughed out of rooms. Any sane person would have quit. But Lee Duncan wasn't sane. He was devoted. And finally, in 1922, he got his break. A film called The Man from Hell's River needed a wolf for one scene. They didn't have a wolf. But they had Lee Duncan, desperate and willing, standing outside with a German shepherd who could do things no wolf could do. "Give him a chance," Duncan begged. "Just one scene." They agreed. And Rin Tin Tin proved everybody wrong. The cameras started rolling. Nobody expected much. It was just a dog, after all. Get the shot, move on. But Rinty didn't just hit his marks. He owned them. On the first take, he performed the action perfectly. No hesitation. No confusion. The director was stunned. Run it again. Same result. Perfect. Again. Perfect. Every single time. And then something happened that changed everything. Between takes, the lead actress was struggling with a crying scene. She couldn't access the emotion. Take after take, nothing worked. Rinty, without any command from Duncan, walked over to her. He sat at her feet. Placed his head gently on her knee. Looked up at her with those deep brown eyes. The actress burst into tears. Real tears. Deep, genuine emotion. They got the shot. The director pulled Duncan aside after filming. "That dog, he's not just trained. He understands." "I know," Duncan said quietly. "I've always known." Word spread through Hollywood fast. A German shepherd who could act. Really act. Not just perform tricks, but connect emotionally. Hit complex marks. Take direction like a human professional. Warner Brothers was desperate. The studio was bleeding money. They needed a hit, anything to stay alive. Traditional stars were expensive and unreliable. But a dog? A dog worked cheap. Didn't demand billing. Didn't show up drunk. Didn't have contract disputes. They signed Rin Tin Tin to a multi-picture deal. The gamble paid off beyond anyone's wildest imagination. His first starring role, Where the North Begins, 1923, was a smash hit. Audiences went crazy for this mysterious, intelligent dog who could convey more emotion with his eyes than most human actors could with their entire bodies. Fan mail started pouring in. Hundreds of letters. Then thousands. Then 10,000 a week. Little kids. Old women. Tough men. Everyone loved Rinty. Warner Brothers assigned a staff just to handle his mail. 18 secretaries worked full-time answering letters to a dog. But success created enemies. Human actors were furious. Here they were, trained professionals with years of experience, and they were being upstaged by a German Shepherd. Gossip columns attacked. Hollywood has gone to the dogs, literally. Is this what our industry has become? Anyone can train a mutt to sit pretty. Some actors refused to work with him. Called it beneath their dignity. Directors pushed back. Why should I cast a dog when I have real talent available? Duncan faced pressure from every angle. Studio executives warned him, keep Rinty under control or we'll find another dog. The press mocked them, the soldier and his circus act. Jealous trainers tried to sabotage him, spreading rumors that Rinty was actually multiple dogs, that it was all camera tricks, that Duncan was a fraud. None of it was true. There was only one Rin Tin Tin. And he kept proving it, film after film. 27 movies in less than a decade. He literally saved Warner Brothers from bankruptcy. Studio historians admitted openly, without Rinty's pictures, there would be no Warner Brothers today. No Casablanca. No Bugs Bunny. No Harry Potter films. Because in the darkest days of the studio, a German Shepherd from a bombed-out kennel paid the bills. But Hollywood never fully accepted him. When the 1929 Academy Awards came around, Rin Tin Tin won the most votes for Best Actor. And the Academy threw out the ballots. Changed the rules. Gave the award to a human. Because giving Hollywood's highest honor to a dog was undignified. Duncan was devastated. But Rinty didn't care about awards. He just curled up at Duncan's feet that night, same as always. For him, there was only one audience that mattered. And that audience was Lee Duncan. We're heading into the most emotional part of this story now. If you want to see how Rin Tin Tin's legacy lives on nearly 100 years later, make sure you're subscribed. Hit that bell so you never miss a video. The talkies changed everything. In 1927, the jazz singer introduced synchronized sound to movies. Silent films were suddenly obsolete. Human actors panicked. Many had voices that didn't match their screen personas. Careers ended overnight. But Rin Tin Tin? A dog's bark sounds the same in any language. He transitioned seamlessly. His pictures kept making money while human stars fell by the wayside. But time catches up with everyone. By the early 1930s, Rinty was slowing down. He was over 10 years old, ancient for a German Shepherd. His eyes weren't as bright. His movements weren't as fluid. The studios noticed. Maybe it's time to retire him. We could find a younger dog. Audiences want fresh faces. Duncan faced the hardest choice of his life. Keep pushing Rinty, risking embarrassment and exploitation. Or walk away from Hollywood at the height of their success. He chose Rinty. He turned down contracts. Refused roles. Protected his dog from an industry that would have worked him to death. He owes Hollywood nothing, Duncan told the executives. Hollywood owes everything to him. The studio heads were furious. They'd invested millions. This dog was their property. But Lee Duncan had the contracts. And the contract said Rin Tin Tin belonged to him. Not Warner Brothers. Not Hollywood. Him. The orphan boy who never had a family had finally found something to protect. And he wasn't going to let anyone hurt it. They moved to a small ranch outside Los Angeles. Away from the press. Away from the studios. Away from everyone who wanted a piece of them. Just Lee and Rinty. A man and his dog. The way it had been in the beginning, in that bombed-out kennel in France. For the next few years, they lived quietly. Duncan trained Rinty's descendants, planning for a legacy that would outlive them both. And Rinty? He spent his final days exactly where he belonged. At Lee Duncan's side. Sleeping on his bed. Walking his land. Being loved. Not as a movie star. Not as a celebrity. Just as a dog. On August 10, 1932, Rin Tin Tin died in Lee Duncan's arms. He was 14 years old. The little puppy from the rubble had lived a lifetime. Duncan wept like he hadn't wept since childhood. He'd lost family before. But never like this. Never someone who loved him back this completely. The world mourned. When news broke of Rin Tin Tin's death, newspapers across America ran front-page stories. Radio stations interrupted programming to announce it. Thousands of letters poured in from fans around the world. He was my childhood. I learned kindness from watching him. A dog taught me what heroism looks like. In France, the town of Fliery, where Rinty had been found, held a memorial service. Hollywood, despite years of jealousy and rejection, finally acknowledged what they'd lost. Tribute films were made. Retrospectives aired. Critics who had mocked him wrote glowing remembrances. But Duncan didn't care about any of that. He buried Rinty at his ranch. Privately. Just him and the dog who had given him everything. And then he did something remarkable. He kept going. Before Rinty died, Duncan had bred him carefully. Multiple generations of descendants carried the bloodline forward. Rin Tin Tin 2. Rin Tin Tin 3. Rin Tin Tin 4. Each one carrying a piece of the original. Each one trained by Duncan personally. It wasn't exploitation. It was legacy. Duncan devoted the rest of his life to preserving what Rinty represented. The descendants made their own movies. Their own TV shows. In the 1950s, The Adventures of Rin Tin Tin became one of the most popular shows on television. Generations of American kids grew up with a German Shepherd hero. And they never knew that it all started with a dying puppy in a bombed-out kennel. A puppy nobody else wanted. A puppy who should have died. Lee Duncan lived until 1960. 55 years after he crawled through that rubble in France. In all that time, he never stopped talking about Rinty. Never stopped training dogs. Never stopped believing in the bond that had saved them both. When he died, he was buried alongside his beloved dogs. Man and dog. Together forever. Just like they'd always been. The Rin Tin Tin bloodline continues to this day. The dogs are carefully bred, trained, and placed with families who understand the legacy they're carrying. 100 years later, the line is unbroken. From rubble to royalty. From death to forever. All because one lonely soldier made a choice. What Lee Duncan started never stopped. The original Rin Tin Tin saved Warner Brothers launched the concept of animal movie stars. Proved that dogs could carry major motion pictures. Every movie dog who came after owes something to him. Lassie. Benji. Air Bud. Marley. Hatchie. They all walk in Rinty's paw prints. But his legacy goes beyond Hollywood. Rin Tin Tin proved something that the world needed to see, that an animal could connect with audiences on a deep emotional level. That love between species was real and powerful. That rescue animals weren't broken, they were waiting. In the 1920s, German Shepherds were the most hated breed in America. They were German dogs, the enemy's weapon. People shot them on sight. Rin Tin Tin changed that. Single-handedly, he rehabilitated the entire breed. Turned them from villains into heroes. Today, German Shepherds are one of the most beloved breeds in the world. Police dogs. Service animals. Family pets. Because of Rinty. And because of Lee Duncan. The orphan boy who found his family in a war zone. The soldier who refused to leave anyone behind. The man who believed in a dying puppy when nobody else did. Their story isn't just about Hollywood or movies or fame. It's about finding each other in the ruins. It's about love that survives everything. It's about looking into someone's eyes and knowing, you're mine, and I'm yours. Forever. That's the real legacy. And it's still alive today. Here's what gets me about this story. In 1918, Rin Tin Tin was garbage. A dying puppy in a bombed kennel. Not worth saving. Not worth the trouble. Any rational person would have walked past. But Lee Duncan wasn't rational. He was broken. Lonely. Desperate for something to love. And in that brokenness, he saw something nobody else could see. Potential. Maybe that's the real lesson here. The world is full of dying puppies. People who've been given up on. Dreams that everyone says are stupid. Sometimes all they need is one person to believe. One person to pick them up out of the rubble and say, "I see you. And I'm not leaving." Duncan saw a movie star in a half-dead puppy. What do you see in the rubble of your life? Rin Tin Tin didn't save Duncan's life. They saved each other. The orphan needed someone to love. The puppy needed someone to believe. Together, they built something that lasted a century. Movies. Legacy. A bloodline that still exists. All from one choice in the ruins. Next time you think something's too broken to save, too far gone, too hopeless, remember this story. Remember the puppy who became Hollywood royalty. Remember the soldier who refused to give up. And ask yourself, what's waiting for you in the rubble? If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button. Every single week, we bring you true stories of war dogs who changed history. Click the bell so you never miss one. And share Rinty's story with someone who needs to believe in miracles. Thanks for staying till the very end, just like Lee Duncan stayed for Rinty. If this story hit you in the feels, click right here to watch the story of Sergeant Stubby, another war dog legend. Or click over here for more incredible war dog stories. See you in the next one.